I've been speaking to you about the 8 patterns of storytelling. I think it's high time that I shared with you what those 8 patterns are and give you a glimpse of some of these patterns and what they're all about. And then we're going to leave some time for our Q&A as well. Uh, Please think about your questions that you may have, thoughts you may have. Put the questions down in the chat window. I may ask you to copy and paste them again so we can pick up some questions. But maybe this is a good point time also for you to start reflecting on any questions that you have. Pop them in. I'll pick them up during the Q&A, which will start in about 15 minutes or so. But do pop in the questions if you have any, and we can always go through that. I may request you just copy paste them and write them again if required. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about applying storytelling a little bit, and what does it take to apply storytelling in the business context? What does that look like? All right, so first of all, here are the 8 patterns of storytelling that I was talking about. Now, these 8 patterns are by a gentleman called Stephen Denning. Stephen Denning is the world's foremost thought leader in the space of business narratives. He's also the author of A Leader's Guide to Storytelling, one of the books that I'm heavily inspired by. In addition to that, any one of you looking at a lighter read on storytelling, I would recommend this book, The Storyteller's Secret by Carmine Gallo. That's the book that I would recommend. Very, very, very powerful book. Easy to read, quick tips, easy tips to understand how storytelling works. All of this is in the business context. None of this is about putting your kids to bed stories. Okay, if you have some tips on that, please share with me. I struggle every night. So the 8 patterns, as you can see there, sparking action, from sparking action to leading people into the future. These are 8 different kinds of stories. Patterns basically means different kinds of stories that you can use in your context. Now, the difference in this is really around what is your objective. The objective defines your pattern. What is your objective, and therefore what pattern do you want to use, right? You remember Mark's story, Mark Malaysia, complex, complicated story. That's a sparking action story. Sam's story of the school bags for his daughters, that's also a sparking action story, right? Vikram's story of Just Imagine is number 8, leading people into the future pattern, right? What I'm asking you to create a 247, a 2-minute story, a 4-minute story, a 7-minute story. That's a must have for every storyteller. That's communicating who you are, your genesis story. That's really, really powerful, right? The Storyteller's author is Carmine Gallo. I've just put it down there. Kiran and some others had a question. I've put it down there. So these are the different patterns of storytelling that we can use, which can really be powerful in your next influence attempt. Even fostering collaboration, for example, pattern number 5. How many of you manage teams? If you can give me a yes there, if you have a team reporting into you. Just getting a sense of how many of you manage teams. Okay, okay, quite a few of us manage teams, right? Now, as leaders and managers of teams, when we have to build bonding in the team, what we've typically done in the pre-COVID era is done team building exercises, right? And what those have really to do some team building, take people out, get them blindfolded, trust fall, and they have their value, they have their place. We do that as well. But you and I both know that that's more fun than really connecting and bonding at a deeper level, isn't it? The bonding really happens over conversations. Would you agree with me? Yes, no? Let's see. Yes, as if you agree with me. The bonding really happens over conversations, right? And that's where, for example, pattern number 5, fostering collaboration, is such a powerful pattern, and you can use it in virtual setups very powerfully. Now, fostering collaboration, pattern number 5, each of these patterns have their own way of telling the story, which is a process by itself. Fostering collaboration is what I also called bonfire stories. The name I've given to it is bonfire stories. And what are bonfire stories really? Bonfire stories, imagine a situation where you're sitting around the bonfire with a couple of friends and everybody's just chatting. It's a freewheeling conversation. Yeah, how many of you have been in that situation around a bonfire, just having a chat, having a conversation, having a cup of tea, coffee, or a beverage, and just having a chat, a freewheeling conversation? Or how many of you remember telling ghost stories sitting around a bonfire? Let's ask that. How many of you remember that? Ghost stories. Come on, give me a yes if you remember ghost stories around a bonfire, yeah? And all the shadows suddenly start coming from nowhere, and suddenly all shadows have some meaning, right? We've done that. Now, fostering collaboration, storytelling pattern is based on the premise that my story will make you think about your story. And you remember that happened in my intro story also. As I told you my story, many of you were thinking, okay, yeah, he stood on stage. Even I remember I also stood on stage like that and something like that. Or auto rickshaw, okay, I also sat in auto rickshaw. Oh, okay, his girlfriend, his wife helped him. Yeah, somebody's helped me also. So there are different parts that each one of you may have related to. Or he was shy, or I was shy too. And as I told you my story, you started going in back in your life and thinking of your story. Why, I remember when I was school, this happened with me, or I was sitting in the auto, or somebody helped me and this happened. My story makes you think of your story. Now, if I was doing this session with all of you, right now the objective is to teach you some of the aspects of storytelling. But the objective that Neeta had given me was, Gatik, we want to improve the collaboration in this group. And if it was a much smaller group, say 7 or 10 people, and the objective was to improve collaboration, I may have still started with the same story, talking about how somebody helped me and made a difference in my life. And that was my girlfriend then, my wife now, and how instrumental she was. If I'd stopped the story there, and if I had not said anything after that, if I was in silence, I can guarantee you, one of you would have automatically stepped in and said, everyone, I think even I've got a similar experience that I'd like to share. Without even being asked, somebody would step in. And that person would share their experience of how somebody helped them change their life. Listening to them, a third person would get inspired to share their story. A fourth person would get... That's called the power of the collective. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now imagine doing this with your team. And because you are the one setting the tone right, you can set it in whichever direction you want to work with the team. One person telling a deeply personal, but the important thing is that it's got to be an authentic story. It's got to be a deeply personal story. It could be a story that requires you to be a little vulnerable. Because when you come across as somebody when you are with your guards down, you're inspiring and encouraging others to put their guards down. In this team context, at least. I'm not asking you to use this with your clients. So bonfire stories can be very, very powerful for building stronger teams. Springboard stories are great stories to use to inspire people, internal or external stakeholders. Communicating who you are is great in any context where you have to introduce yourself to anybody. Pattern number 8 is brilliant to paint a vision for a client, internally for your people, and even for your client. If you're doing some path-breaking work that's going to revolutionize or that's going to change, leading people into the future is great. Pattern number 7, sharing knowledge, is very similar to the springboard story. The only difference is the springboard story talks about a past success, whereas sharing knowledge talks about a past failure. How many of you have heard of the name Stephen Elop? Just give me a yes if you've heard the name Stephen Elop. Or give me a no if you haven't heard the name, actually. Anything to get you to type. Okay, no, all right. Okay. How many of you have heard of the company Nokia? Can I get a yes or a no? Yeah, of course. Of course. I'm hoping for some of us, if we are from the same generation, our first cell phone would have been a Nokia. What was that model? The first one that came without the antenna. The first one with the antenna was the 6410 or something. The first one without the antenna was 3310. Nikhil is right. 3310, yeah. And playing that, I forget the name of the game. Yeah, the snake. Yeah, was it called the snake? No, I think it was called something else. Or was it called snake? Maybe, yeah. So Nokia. Now, one of the most popular corporate stories ever told is a narrative which was so powerful that it created a category for itself called the burning platform story. If you go on Google and if you type burning platform Nokia story, you'll get the entire memo that Stephen Elop was the CEO of Nokia at the helm of affairs when Nokia was struggling. And he wrote a memo to his employees talking about what a grave situation they were in. And the story was so powerful and so compelling that it created a category for itself called the burning platform story. Uh, so imagine this, the CEO of Nokia telling thousands of people that they may not have their job, very sensitive matter, but telling that through a story. I use this example when people ask me, is it okay to use a story in this situation or that situation? Such a sensitive situation, and it's publicly available. You go to Google, you type burning platform Nokia memo or Nokia story, you'll get the entire story. And that's a sharing knowledge pattern, because sharing knowledge is about sharing past mistakes made and sharing knowledge through that. It's a great pattern to use in coaching. It's a great pattern to use while giving feedback, while mentoring somebody. So as you can see, there are different patterns that you can use in different situations to make change happen, to help people understand the value of the message that you're giving. All right. So those are the 8 patterns of storytelling. I also told you that I'll share with you a little bit about the science behind the pattern. So each pattern has a different construct to it. So I'm going to talk to you about 2 patterns, the springboard pattern and the leading people into the future, the first and the last, which would be most relevant to the kind of people that we have attending this masterclass today.